Breaking news today as the KwaZulu-Natal Legislature delivers a decisive response that has sent political shockwaves across the province. In a dramatic moment that blends legal precision with political tension, the legislature has refused to act on the National Freedom Party's request to remove one of its own senior representatives, Mbali Shirna, from her seat as a member of the provincial legislature, MPL. At the heart of the controversy lies a fundamental question. Can a political party discipline its members in ways that override constitutional safeguards? For the NFP, the answer appeared simple. For the legislature, the Constitution spoke louder than party directives. The dispute erupted after the NFP's acting Secretary-General Sunset Becky Zaba formally informed the Speaker that Shinga's party membership had been suspended with immediate effect. The party expected swift consequences, removal from the legislature and replacement with a loyal cadre. But instead of compliance, the request was met with a firm constitutional rebuttal. The Speaker of the legislature, Nontembeko Boyce, issued a response that cut through political pressure and anchored itself squarely in the law. Her message was clear. Internal party decisions, however serious, do not automatically translate into the loss of a legislative seat. For observers, this was more than a procedural ruling. It was a defining moment that reaffirmed the supremacy of South Africa's constitutional order. The Speaker cited Section 106(3) of the Constitution, a clause that strictly limits the circumstances under which an MPL can lose their seat. Suspension, she ruled, does not meet that threshold. Behind the legal language lies human drama. Shirna, a sitting MEC and member of the Government of Provincial Unity, remains in office despite her party's attempt to sideline her. For the NFP, the decision is a setback. For constitutional lawyers, it is a textbook affirmation of democratic safeguards. This unfolding story is about power, loyalty, and the limits of political authority. If you value independent institutions and accountable governance, like this update, subscribe for ongoing coverage, share it with others, and comment with your thoughts on whether party discipline should ever override constitutional protection. The story is only beginning. The chain of events began quietly, with a letter dated December 22, 2025. Addressed to the Speaker's office, it carried the authority of the NFP's National Executive Committee and the signature of Sunset Becky Zaba. The message was unambiguous. Mbali Shinga's membership had been suspended, and the legislature was expected to act accordingly. Within party structures, such correspondence often signals the end of a political career. Parties wield disciplinary power to enforce unity and ensure compliance with leadership decisions. In this case, the NFP argued that Shirna could no longer represent the organization and should therefore vacate her seat. But constitutional governance is not designed to operate on assumption. Each claim must pass a legal test. The Speaker's office examined the request not as a political plea, but as a constitutional question. The result was a measured yet resolute refusal. Boyce's response drew a sharp line between party membership and legislative representation. She pointed out that Section 106(3) of the Constitution defines only three conditions under which an MPL may lose their seat: loss of eligibility, unapproved absence from the legislature, or cessation of party membership. Suspension, she noted, is not termination. This distinction proved decisive. By suspending Shirna rather than expelling her, the NFP failed to trigger any constitutional mechanism for removal. The legislature therefore declined the request, while leaving the door open should the party later meet the constitutional requirements. The correspondence was copied directly to Shirna, underscoring the seriousness of the situation and the transparency of the process. For her, the letter was both a lifeline and a warning. She retained her seat, but the political storm around her was far from over. What emerged from this exchange was a stark reminder that South Africa's democratic framework deliberately shields public representatives from arbitrary recall. The system prioritizes stability and voter representation over internal party conflicts. In doing so, it often frustrates political organizations seeking swift disciplinary outcomes. To understand the intensity of the NFP's move, one must examine the events that preceded it. Shinga's suspension did not occur in isolation. It followed a highly charged vote in the KwaZulu-Natal Legislature, where she allegedly defied direct instructions from NFP President Ivan Barnes. In coalition politics, loyalty is currency. The government of provincial unity relies on delicate balances and trust between partners. Any deviation from agreed positions is often interpreted as betrayal. According to reports, Shinga's actions during the vote crossed a line the party leadership was unwilling to ignore. The NFP's response was swift and severe. Suspension was intended as both punishment and deterrence, a signal to other members that defiance would not be tolerated. Yet the constitutional framework altered the outcome in ways the party may not have anticipated. Instead of consolidating authority, the suspension exposed the limits of party control. Sherna retained her seat and her executive position, while the party was left navigating internal fallout. Supporters questioned strategy, critics questioned leadership, and legal analysts dissected the implications. For Sherna, the moment is deeply personal. Political isolation, public scrutiny, and uncertainty now define her professional landscape. Yet she also stands as a symbol of constitutional protection, a reminder that elected office is not merely an extension of party hierarchy. This tension highlights a recurring challenge in South African politics, balancing party discipline with constitutional independence. While parties campaign collectively, representatives serve under a legal framework that prioritizes democratic stability over internal cohesion. The standoff has effectively paused the NFP's attempt to replace Sherna as an MPL. Until her membership is formally terminated or she resigns, the legislature's position remains unchanged. The party must now decide whether to escalate its disciplinary process or reconsider its approach. At the center of this dispute stands the South African Constitution, a document designed to withstand political pressure and safeguard democratic principles. Section 106(3) may appear technical, but its impact is profound. It ensures that voters' choices cannot be undone lightly, even by the very parties they supported. By refusing the NFP's request, the legislature reinforced the idea that public office is not owned by political organizations. Instead, it is governed by law and anchored in the will of the electorate. This principle has shaped numerous legal precedents and continues to define the relationship between parties and representatives. The Speaker's ruling also protects the legislature itself. Allowing parties to remove MPLs through suspension alone could destabilize governance, invite abuse, and erode institutional independence. The refusal therefore serves not just Sherna, but the integrity of the legislative system. Legal experts note that parties still retain options. Expulsion, if carried out in accordance with party constitutions and due process, could satisfy constitutional requirements. Alternatively, voluntary resignation remains a possibility. What is clear is that shortcuts are not permitted. This episode underscores the careful balance embedded in South Africa's democracy. Parties are powerful actors, but they operate within boundaries. When those boundaries are tested, institutions are expected to hold firm, as the KwaZulu-Natal legislature has done. For citizens, the case offers a rare window into how constitutional safeguards function in real time. It demonstrates that democratic protections are not abstract ideals, but practical tools that shape political outcomes. As internal party processes continue behind closed doors, the public arena remains focused on the broader implications. The question is no longer just about one mech, but about how far party authority can reach. The Sherna saga is far from over. While the immediate attempt to remove her has failed, the political consequences will continue to unfold. For the NFP, the challenge lies in restoring authority without undermining constitutional norms. For Sherna, the path ahead is uncertain, marked by legal protection but political vulnerability. This confrontation sets an important precedent. It signals to all political parties that constitutional compliance is non-negotiable. Disciplinary actions must be aligned with legal standards, not driven solely by internal dynamics. For the legislature, the episode reinforces its role as guardian of constitutional order. By resisting pressure, it has affirmed public confidence in independent institutions. Such moments, though contentious, strengthen democracy in the long term. For voters, the case invites reflection. It raises questions about representation, accountability, and the relationship between parties and the people they elect. It reminds citizens that their choices are protected by law, even amid political turbulence. As KwaZulu-Natal watches this story unfold, one truth stands clear. the Constitution remains the ultimate authority. In a political landscape often shaped by power struggles, that principle is both reassuring and essential. Stay informed, stay engaged, and continue following this developing story as it reshapes conversations about party discipline, constitutional law, and democratic governance in South Africa.